Hello, I'm Dr. Dale McGee, and I served on the school committee for 4 terms with Sandy Fryc. She's running again for re-election, and this is a contested election. So I think it's very important for you to get to know Sandy so that you can make an informed decision with your vote. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us today, Sandy.
Thank you, Dale. I'm so happy that you were able to sit down with me and talk about my candidacy and why I'm seeking to run for re-election again.
So you've already served 5 terms.
I have, yes.
And so the question is, why run again?
Right.
Why not, what about new blood? What do you think?
Right. I think for me, when I look at what makes a good school committee member, it's stability and experience, and I have done it for 5 terms. It is a long time to sit on one committee, and at this point we were going to have 2 seats open, and at this point in my life I'm also free. I have a lot of time. My children are grown, so I can devote this to the role, and I really feel having historical knowledge of the success and the challenges in the schools is something that's really key, as well as the relationships that you form with your board members and also with various members throughout the community and town hall. It's really important to have that stability.
So, you work hard on the school committee, but the school committee doesn't do everything. Just what is involved with being on the school committee? What are your primary duties?
Right, that's a great question, because I think many people feel we do or have more responsibility than we actually do as a committee. So there are 3 main areas that a school committee is over. We write and we maintain the school district policies. We also vote and approve the school budget every year. And we also hire and evaluate the school superintendent. But embedded within each of those areas are a lot of different things. We have community relations, we do collective bargaining, which is a very big piece of our work, and that ties into the budget. So there's a lot of other areas that actually fall under those 3 broad categories, but those are really our only 3 responsibilities.
And the collective bargaining piece is really a tough one. It takes up a lot of time. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. You have to try to keep everybody happy.
That's right.
You've served on those committees term after term after term and done so well for the community. Talk to me about your qualifications for that. What do you bring to the table that another candidate may not?
Sure. I think one of the things that I bring that's a little unique to that role in negotiations is my professional experience, and in my work life I do a lot of negotiating and mediation work that also flows into financial pieces within that. And that is a really good key skill to have, because negotiations aren't easy. We're all going for the same end. We want to make sure that we're doing right by our students, our staff, but you also have to really be focused on the taxpayers at the same time. And the budget is only so big. Right. So we have to make sure that we're paying people appropriately, but we're also looking at the taxpayers' dollars and investment into the community.
You don't have money to spare on the school committee. So in many ways, it's a zero-sum game. When you're making a decision, you want to pay people fairly, but by the same token, the money may be coming from someplace else, and so you have to be very careful.
Absolutely. And the budget piece is a huge amount of our work. I think you know from serving for so many years yourself that we are proud about the stability of educational services despite difficulties with the budget, and that's due to the work of the committee, the district, parents. Everyone is involved in making sure that that works well. But you also need to have the skill and the understanding of what is needed in a budget and maybe things that we don't need to do. And you have to make hard decisions, but that's part of being a school committee member.
And that budget is like nothing anybody else has ever seen before. So, when we talk about a budget and people say, well, I have a budget, or I ran a business, or I have an MBA, or whatever, the fact is that school budgets are very, very different. And really, there are many budgets. It's not just one. There is the budget that is presented to the town meeting. There is the budget that consists of the all-in costs that may not be included in town meeting. And there are elements that come in one year that are paying for something in a different year. Exactly. So it is not something that you learn quickly. I can assure people that it takes a term at least.
It does. And I think even after all the years I've been on, I'm still learning about the budget, and there's always something new that we have to deal with, or how do we allocate, or is it a grant? And just recently we had the COVID dollars, and that was a whole other area that we had never dealt with. And how do you allocate those funds appropriately and not create a funding cliff? Because a lot of that was one-time money, and if we used it for repeating and recurring expenses, we would have a huge cliff. So there's so much to look at, including, circuit breaker, Chapter 70 funding. It's always something to evaluate and assess, and I still think I'm learning on that.
Yeah, and we've been through a lot. You've been through even more with regard to crises regarding funding the school department. There were many touch and go moments in past years, and this has improved recently. Do you want to talk a little bit about the new budgeting process for the town?
That's an excellent question, and I think that's something as a committee that we really are proud of, that we looked at our budget structural deficit year after year. We were dealing with needs more than what the town could provide in dollars, and we wanted to have a stable, reliable source of income. And we looked to the town of Arlington, and we called it the Arlington model, and they really were kind of blazing the path for us to follow and look at how do you raise money, but also make sure it's sustainable for a long period of time. And we reached out, I spoke to their chair multiple times, and one of the things that they have is their stabilization fund. In working with Kevin Mizikar, our town manager, with Joe Sawyer, the whole school committee, and then partnering with the Board of Selectmen, which was key. And I think that is one of the main reasons we were able to be so successful and get that override passed in 2021, is that partnership and the stabilization fund.
Right, that was the beginning of a change in the relationship between the school committee and the selectmen. And I think knowing in advance that you needed to work together, and that you had to arrive at a solution that was good for everybody. And rather than waiting until the school presented a budget and then debating it then, getting in there up front and just going along the way with them was really in advance. And this was something that you worked hard on.
Right, and I think the relationships that we've built over the years, having what we call our 2-2 meetings, that we meet once or twice a month with the town manager, superintendent, to school committee, to Board of Selectmen, have helped us look at issues in a much more timely sequence and really talk about it so that we can get ahead and look for solutions before everything gets in a position where it's detrimental. And those community relationships are huge, and I think I'm really, really happy that we're working this well with our other community members.
Right. And I think that in addition to just going to those meetings every 2 weeks during the school year, there are a lot of subcommittees, there are a lot of other efforts that you need to put in if you're going to put in the time on school committee. And you have been particularly good at volunteering for a lot of efforts to represent our district. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of those committees that you've been on?
Sure. I think from a work ethic standpoint, I've always worked really hard on the school committee. If you're going to be in an elected position, you do it for the work and to make our schools a better place has always been my philosophy. And particularly involved in the finance subcommittee, I've worked on the policy subcommittee. I have also been on the Beal building committee. Lots of areas that are very interesting. I've learned a lot, but the goal is to just make educational services better for every student who attends.
And many of these committees went on for years.
They did.
And so there's quite a commitment to being on the school committee. It is, as I say, not just a couple of hours every few weeks. You want to talk about that a little bit?
I think the public sees our Wednesday night public-facing meetings, and those happen twice a month. But there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and we even have executive session after a long meeting. We have a lot of workshops, particularly around the budget, any issues that are occurring within the community. It's a lot of commitment. So you have to want to do it. You have to be ready to do it. You have to have a passion for education and serving our community. And the time is there. There's a lot of time. There's
You're
no
right.
doubt about that.
I mean, the budget, which is presented in May, the first workshop for that often takes place in September
Exactly.
to begin the work on that and to make all the predictions that are necessary. What work do you feel you are most proud of in your time on the school committee?
For me, the thing that I'm most proud of is that we remain a strong, stable school district. We have good results. All students are getting educational services that we feel and hopefully their families feel are appropriate. To me, that's the number one thing. Public education is the great equalizer, and if we don't have strong education, that nothing else is going to work. So I'm really proud of that. I'm also proud of the 2021 override, working with the town to get this into a place where we're going to be sustainable for a long period of time. And I'm also really happy about the new Bill School. That's something that we worked for many years to get going, get into the pipeline with the school building authority. And we were able to finally provide universal free day kindergarten, which was something as a school committee, we've talked about for many, many years. So those are the things that are gratifying that we're able to push forward and make a better district.
And coming up, what sorts of things do you feel we need to pay more attention to and what stresses lie in the future?
Right now, I think always the number one issue is making sure that our budget is appropriate, that we're providing services that are well thought out, but also good for the taxpayers, that we're doing things in a mindful, purposeful way. The other issues that we have going forward are space issues. We've just completed a pre-K through 12 space study. We know the high school has been overcrowded for years. So that is something we are looking at. We're working with the Board of Selectmen and hopefully going to vote to put in a issue into the MSBA just to make sure that we're getting that done in a timely fashion because that school is bursting at the seams. We're also looking at DEI work, making sure that our inclusion and all of the things that we want students to know are appropriate, that our policies are current. So there's always something that we have to do, but one of the biggest things I think on my agenda and for the district is making sure that we're providing vocational and technical experiences for students because we know the state has changed the regulation for admission and our students are not able to get into ASAPIT in any numbers that we would feel appropriate. That is one of the biggest areas that we need to make sure those students who want vocational technical experiences have course offerings as well as experiences and internships in the community. And that's something we're hearing from the public they want.
This is critical. I think people watching this are not only trying to decide how to vote, but they're also learning a little bit about our school system. And so it's worth highlighting this vocational training issue because up until a year or so ago, we could send our patients over to our patients, listen to me, the doctor and me. We could send our students over to ASAPIT.
Correct.
But then some new regulations from the state came in place regarding admission of students that essentially cut us off.
Exactly.
Do you want to sort of highlight that a little bit? Because I
Sure.
think it really is important.
Right. The state decided that they wanted to make it a more equitable process for admission into vocational schools. And our state leads the country in vocational schools, but we don't have enough of them. They're very, very, very expensive to build. And we want to make sure any student who has an opportunity to, and it's not just the trades, traditional trades, but there's also biotech, there's hairdressing, there's lots of experiences. So our students do not have the opportunity to get into these schools. And for any group of students, we need to make sure that we're fulfilling the needs as a public school. And it's detrimental. And if you talk to anybody, there's a lot of trades that don't have enough people going into them. So what are we going to do when we need our plumbing or electrical or that person who knows how to engineer a little piece for a machine? So it's something that's a problem in the state. It's really a state level issue, but we need to do what we can to mitigate it here at the same time.
Our students need it now. And
Absolutely.
so we need to have a plan A and a plan B for the short term and for the long term. And you're working on that
Absolutely.
on the school committee. And there also, I think, we have a terrific record regarding getting our students into college.
Yes.
Our graduates go on to college at about what rate?
Right now, I think it's over 90% between
Right.
2-year and 4-year colleges.
Right. So we're getting a lot of our students into college, which is a good thing. The issue is, are we getting enough into the trades and into a field that they like?
Right.
There also is an evolution with regard to our education in that we're beginning to not just try to look for vocational opportunities, but also to introduce the concepts of careers and jobs and everything
Yes.
as our students go through schools. Do you want to chat a little
Right.
bit about that?
We're looking more into that occupational experience, because you may be in high school and take a class that might interest you, and then you're going to go further with that maybe in college. But there are times you take a class and say, I never want to study that in college. So it's giving students an opportunity to experience different things as they plan their future. Because we know at 18, we're not really sure what we want to do. And many of us change what we think our careers were going to be when we were 18. So I think providing more job opportunities, internships, and experiences are good for any student, regardless of what they do afterwards. It's going to make them more well-informed.
Right. And it's also going to if they choose to go on to college, it's going to allow them to be more focused and to waste less time and less money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
And that is a
definitely a plus.
concern. College is so expensive now. We want to make sure that students are getting what they need versus just spending so much. We all know what it costs to send our children to college, and you hope that they come out with an idea of where they want to end up in life. But things change. But if we can start it earlier, I think we'll have better results on the other side.
And so what other things would you like to bring up now? What other things do you feel make you a strong candidate?
I believe that my knowledge of what it entails to be a school committee member is key, as well as the stability that I bring. I also have very good working relationships with the central office staff, town management, as well as teachers and parents. My children I've met through them, families. So I think it's getting to know the district and what the district needs are. And as I've been, and as you saw as a school committee member, things change over time. When COVID hit, if we did not have the technology in place that we had decided to work on years before, we would have been in a very different spot, but we were able to pivot. So having that type of information and knowledge, I think, is key to being a good school committee member. And I also have a very strong work ethic. I feel that that's a good thing that I bring to the school committee.
And you work well with others. So I think
you.
another thing that is worth bringing up is the fact that this is the school committee in Shrewsbury is a very functional group.
Yes.
They bring a lot of different opinions, but by the same token, they work through them. They get things done. They respect each other. They like each other. And I have to say, having served on the school committee for 12 years, that you are a big part of that.
Thank
that
you.
you connect people very well. You keep the conversation going. And that is really a value that is hard to quantify.
Thank you, and I agree. I hope I am always seen by the work that I do versus the position that I hold. To me, it's about the work. It's not a title. It's doing the right thing for the community, and I think that's important.
Okay. So I just want to say that Sandy Fritz is running for re-election. It is a contested election. Sandy has served us well for 5 terms and brings an enormous amount of institutional knowledge to the table. She is dedicated. She is hardworking. I am going to vote for her, and I hope you do as well.